Right, folks, I am hoping that I am now live. It's 6 p.m. here in the UK, up in snowy Aberdeen, where thankfully my kids are back to school today after having an extra day off yesterday with several inches of snowfall and no buses running. So today what I'm hoping to talk about is my new community launch. I have decided off the back of the work that I've done the last 3 to 4 years in the community, where I've helped folk out on the forums. I've got over 500 solutions there. I have started my YouTube and obviously 15,000 plus subscribers now. And I really wanted to create a niche community on the subjects that I'm most passionate about, which is automation. Now agents also, with the introduction of the generative capabilities in Copilot Studio, and AI in general, because you'll have hopefully seen some examples on my YouTube where I've used language models or AI models to extract data from invoices and receipts, etc. This stuff fascinates me, and in my role as a cloud solution architect at Microsoft, I like to showcase the technology to the clients I work with, but also help them understand how to best implement these technologies. So the new community that I have decided to launch is on a platform called Teachable. I won't lie, there is a subscription cost associated with it. It's a minimal amount, I believe, at $14.99 if you buy up front, or $19.99 USD dollars if you want to go monthly. But there's a 7-day trial at the moment, and that's really just so you can join the platform, have a look around, and see some of the content that's already been generated. The aim of my community really is to share knowledge. Ultimately, I learn a lot about the Power Platform in my day-to-day job. I love exploring it. I love showcasing it. And so getting to meet people further afield across the world and understand what they're working on, learn from you, not just from me, by sharing the knowledge and understanding, and also challenging each other. Ultimately, that's what I'm trying to do, is to learn from other people too. I won't lie, and I will be honest, I don't know everything. And so part of that enjoyment really is working through those challenges. So we kicked things off last night. I have 20 plus subscribers so far. 10 people joined me in the first kickoff call last night, which was in Teams. And we had a good introduction and a discussion generally about what I hope to do. And I thought I would share that with everyone tonight on a live call on my YouTube. So as well as having that community platform and having a forum where we can discuss things and share ideas, coming together once a fortnight for an hour to talk through different scenarios. In the next fortnight, on the 20th, my plan is really to take everyone up to a level of understanding with the automation, agents and AI, primarily Power Automate, Cloud Flows, Copilot Studio and AI Builder. My focus obviously is Power Platform. If folk have an interest in other technologies, want to showcase stuff during the calls, I'm totally open for that. And already one of our new members has offered to showcase an automation they've built for meeting transcripts. And for me, that's fascinating again to see an example of a business process using this Microsoft technology. So I will encourage members of the community to showcase stuff during these calls. It's definitely a platform for that too. It's a platform for you to network, to hear different opinions, and ultimately to learn and share. So that's the community side of things. As another little project for myself, I've always fancied launching a course, and that's what I've been secretly working on the last few weeks really, but it's been something I've been thinking about for some time, waiting for Copilot Studio to mature. It's getting there, it's growing, it's constantly changing, but it's over 12 months now, and it's changed from Power Virtual Agents to Copilot Studio. And so as a result of that, I have put together a series of workshops using a platform called Scribe, and I'll showcase some of that shortly. But ultimately, it's some recorded user guides that you can work through and build out your own agent. And like I do on my YouTube channel, I will also record some videos. So depending on what sort of media you want to use to learn that process, you can either watch a video, see how it's done, or follow the guides, or do both. But as part of being part of the community, I'll make that course material available too. And my hope is to have that fully launched this month. And then I want to do the same with Power Automate. I want to give everyone a set of labs and materials to get you from zero to hero in Power Automate. Again, for the community, I fully expect people to challenge me and say, I've built the agent, I've completed your workshop, can we now do X? And that'll enable me to create new labs, but also it'll enable me to learn about the product. It'll enable you to learn about the product, the pros and cons, how we can do things, the different ways of doing things. And that's, again, something that I'm very much looking forward to. The courses I will sell separately, but if you join the community, like I say, it's part of that. You can come on the journey with me, you can challenge me, you can really shape what that material might look like. So I realise I've sort of talked for 5-6 minutes. I see there's a few people in chat. I've got Stevie from Dundee, so not too far away from me in Aberdeen. I hope that you've managed to escape the snow, or maybe you're into skiing or sledging or building snowmen. A couple of other names in there, Michael and Frederick, and hello from Miami, which is awesome. I do like Florida, or maybe Disney is where I like to go with the kids, and Madrid. Fantastic. So Spain is another popular place I do like to go to Spain to get a bit of sun, because it is definitely cold here in Scotland. So a bit about myself, and then I'll show you some of the materials that I have put together. I'll take you around the platform, and I can also maybe do a little demo as well. So I won't take up the full hour, but for those that don't know me, I sort of, like I say, I started helping out on the forums. The reason I started helping out on the forums ultimately was because I had a job in public sector, and I worked really, really hard trying to deploy Teams in SharePoint, and I worked alongside partners, a Microsoft partner, and also Microsoft as a public sector worker for a local council. And I had the shock of my life in that I had a cardiac arrest. So I was super fit. I used to do lots of cycling, lots of running. And at 38 years old, one day during lockdown, in fact, almost 5 years ago, I had a cardiac arrest out on my bike. And once I'd recovered from all that, and I left the hospital with an ICD, so a cardiac defibrillator, one of those big packs that you see that can shock people into life. I've got one of them built into me now. I kind of reflected. I felt sorry for myself. And because I had a passion for automation in general and did lots with batch scripts and PowerShell scripts back in my old job in the council, I started looking at Power Platform and then realised that there was a good opportunity to start learning this new technology. And so I started looking at the forums. I started helping people in the forums. I thoroughly enjoyed interacting with people on the forums. I met new people through some of the online discussions, and some of the folk that are big in the community these days. It was great to work alongside these people and help others. And so my YouTube was really a distraction from my health issues. And even just an hour ago before this call started, I was actually on a treadmill testing myself in the local hospital, because I've still got, I've got a device, I've got a pacemaker as well. I've had several complications since the original diagnosis, and so the treadmill was another attempt to rule out a possibility. So devices all turned off, back on the treadmill, see what happens. But that was 5 years ago, which is hard to believe. But over that time, I have continued to help folk in the forums. I started a blog, I did my YouTube, and as a consequence of all that, I became an MVP, and I still keep trophy by my side, despite it being 2022. It's a moment that I was very proud of, because I never thought I could achieve something like that. And I guess, I can bring that experience to the community too. So if that's something that you want to achieve one day, certainly I can help you understand what's possible and what you might need to achieve there. But for me, the biggest reward as a result of doing all this stuff online has been able to speak to people across the world. I've spoken to people in different languages where I can only speak English, and I've used the tools online to translate. That for me, being connected to people through the technology is a magic moment, and ultimately being able to help people with that technology is fantastic for me. And when I had that job in public sector, I didn't realise existed. I thought you go to work 9 to 5, you come home, that's it, and then out my bike. So no longer out my bike. I now do my YouTube. That is my hobby, and the community again is my opportunity to connect with other people across the world and help folk potentially with careers, but ultimately to understand the Power Platform, specifically Power Automate Cloud Flows, Copilot Studio, and AI in the form of AI Builder, albeit I do like tinkering with Azure and other AI services too. So I see we've also got Amol from India as well. That's amazing, the reach. Thank you very much. I'm glad to have you on the call today. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to switch things up, hopefully, and I will change scenes, and hopefully I will disappear into a little corner in the left-hand side, and you'll now be able to see the Teachable platform. So this is where I've been working, squirreling away over Christmas, trying to put together the beginnings of my first course. And you can see that some of these are already published, and if I break out my little pointer, you can see these ones here that are marked as published. These other ones that I'm working on have either got content or, as you can see, are currently sitting as empty, but not to worry, because I suspect these will be the least exciting for folk. People ultimately want to get cracking. So if I scroll down a bit, this is where the exciting bit exists, I believe anyway. I have already worked on putting out public previews of 2 of the labs, one on building the custom HR agent, which is just the beginnings of how to build. So if you've never used Copilot Studio in your life and you want to build a custom agent, then that first one here will give you an insight on how to get started. And then if you're wondering where everything is in Copilot Studio, the video that I released on my YouTube at the weekend, and again, I've added to the workshop material here, it is a tour of Copilot Studio. So in addition to all that, there are many other pages that you can see here that include text and custom code, and this is the curriculum. There are about 12 or so labs now working through all the different areas of Copilot Studio. I very much want people to have a hands-on experience. This is something that you will do in your own time. I'm not going to take you through it as part of the community. It is material that you'll have access to. You can look through, you can ultimately watch the videos that I haven't yet recorded, but I will record. But the written labs are there. And that will enable you to understand all the different capabilities of Copilot Studio, how to enable the generative orchestration so that you can access different data sources and call upon your actions and your topics using generative orchestration. And as this is hands-on, you will progressively work through those different areas, turning things on and off as you build out an HR agent. And in addition to following the material, if I scroll right back up to the top, there is a read me please, because there is some sample data as well. So there are things like some template Word documents, some sample PowerFX code, for instance, because you can use PowerFX in Copilot Studio. And that is, in fact, the same language that you're probably using in Excel, but definitely in Canvas apps if you're building out Canvas apps. But stuff like that will be part of the labs. It's already uploaded and available. If I jump across, this is the view that you'll get as a student. And you can see you start the lesson, you can see your progress, and this is ultimately the materials that you'll be able to see and review. And I will add to that, like I say, as folk complete it and set new challenges, ask me, how can I do this? Is it possible to do X, Y, and Z? And here is the video that I've uploaded into the tour of Copilot. And if we have a look a bit further down, we can start to see some of the documentation. So this is the Scribe platform that I mentioned. It gives you step-by-step instructions. You can see where I've clicked. There's sort of overviews as well as instructions on where to click next. And I'll progressively work you through the Copilot Studio platform. The thing I really like about Scribe is you can see exactly what I'm focused on, but equally, if you want to zoom in or out of a particular area, you can do so using this interface. And of course, you can drag around. So if you want to have a good nosy about to see where I've been when I've been building out this lab, he's done something without telling me, hopefully I tell you everything, then you should be able to zoom in and out and you've not just got that small snapshot of a screen. So there's some sample materials. Those are available publicly if you want to have a look at the Teachable site. And I'll maybe just go and grab that link right now and I can chuck that into the chat. So if people want to have a look, that's where you have a look at the materials. Moving across onto my next tab, this is where we had our first kickoff. So one of the proposals I've given you is I'm going to build 2 courses. I'm going to have Copilot Studio available in January. I'm going to work on our Cloudflow materials, hopefully no later than June. And then there is a Fortnightly meetup. This is delivered as a course. So if you go to sign up, you might see it says 3 courses. The third is the Fortnightly meetup, but it gives you the platform with links to the meeting, which I hosted in Teams last night. And then we have the recording. So last night we had 10 folk attend. I shared a few links as a result of the discussions, including quotes from Charles Lamanna, as you can see here, and also a video from Satya Nadella, which I would recommend you have a look at, who believes we're about to enter the agent era. But a very interesting discussion and some of the materials that I've shared. And already I've got the post up for our next meeting on the 20th of January. And I see we've got someone from Texas too, and I'm just going to take a quick glug of my orange juice. So I've taken a wee glug of my orange juice, back on it. I'm now jumping across onto the community site. So the community site that I've built on the Teachable platform, it has a series of categories here. The general category already, I've had people start to introduce themselves, so I didn't want to publicly humiliate folk with any of their pictures that they've shared, but this is the idea behind it. There'll be a general category for you to introduce yourself to the community, but then there are sections here or categories here depending on what you're trying to achieve. So help and support, if you are looking for support within the forum. And the good thing about this is, if you've ever been to forums before, you want to be able to share images, well, you can go and take screenshots and share images of where you are in Copilot Studio or in Power Automate, etc., and make it easier for people to understand where you are. Equally, if you've already posted it publicly on Reddit, or if you've done it on the official Microsoft forums, then again, you can include a link and help someone direct them to what's already been discussed. In addition to help and support, I've got learning and resources, which is where I'll share any of the materials that I've put together or any of the events, the community events that I'm going to have. And we can see this one that I've got open at the moment is based on the kickoff meeting that we just had on the 6th of January. Again, just confirming that you'll have access to the community forum, fortnightly live calls, and access to the 2 upcoming courses that I'm working on. We've got showcase and inspiration, and ultimately, because this is a community, I would like you to be sharing what you've been working on. So if there's something you've been working on that you're proud of, you can go and place it in the showcase and inspiration category. But equally, like I mentioned earlier, if you're part of the community and you're happy to do a demo, 5 minutes, 2 minutes, 10 minutes, then go for it. That's ultimately where I started. I started doing demos, short ones, and grew to where I am now and speaking live on YouTube. Can't believe it, but this is what's happening. Then I've got the platform updates and news. Part of my role really is understanding all the changes. There are various announcements from Microsoft. They happen twice a year as part of 2 6-monthly release guides. And so I can, or I have, in fact, if I click on that, I think I may well have already included some of the materials about the waves. So if it's something you've not yet familiarized yourself with, where to find the answers officially from Microsoft, then I will start showcasing and pointing you in the direction of these materials. So again, it might help you with your day-to-day job, not realizing these things exist, but it's always a good starting point when you're trying to work out, is something public preview, is it private preview, is it generally available, and should you be using it in production, or is it just an opportunity for you to go and play and test out some new functionality? So those are all the categories on the forum. Again, it's just a place where I felt we could come together and share ideas. I'm not going to answer all the questions on the forum, if I'm honest. That is not what I'm proposing here, but it does give you that space where we can come together and help each other. And ultimately, the public forums are going to have more people sitting behind them. I was one of those people solving those solutions, and I know just how valuable and underappreciated at times those people are. So hats off to everyone that does help out in the forums. If that's something you're interested in doing, again, you can have that chat with me, and I'm more than happy to point you in the direction. So that covers the community forum, and I have another browser session open, which I'm hoping I can pop up here. So there we go. So this is just showing you around my Scribe platform. And again, just wanted to show some of the materials, just to show that these things do exist. I have built them. You can see that some of them are shorter than others, in that I have one here that's got 21 steps, which is using YAML in the code editor of Copilot Studio. But then also I've got this nice chunky one here with 145 steps. And it's building a flow and using an approval process within your agent. So I have these things all detailed in great detail, and I have shared 2 of those publicly. And again, if I have a look at one of these, I'll just pop one of them open. This is not one that I've shared, so you're definitely getting a sneak preview here. But again, like I mentioned, I love the fact that you've got your links in here so you can quickly open these things up on your own environment. We've got the headers down the left-hand side, so if I wanted to jump to the section on testing out the logic for the number of days, you can see it's jumped down now to this particular section, and you need to click into the test pane on the right-hand side and type the following. I want to request annual leave and provide a date, etc. So this will work you through the process, and you can see some of the capabilities here. The fact that I've requested 11 annual leave days for our public holidays, and you will use 5 annual leave days, because I can tell you that there are 2 weekend days in that period. So 4 plus 5 plus 2 makes 11 days off in total. You definitely want to have the 23rd of December to the 2nd of January off to maximize your annual leave request. So you'll build this out in Copilot Studio. I've included all the logic, all the steps, and it's nicely documented, and I even have those explanations within the guides too. So I've spoken now for 25 minutes. I wanted to, well, I see the chat's open. There are certainly several people that have introduced themselves and said hello. That's fantastic. If anyone has any questions off the back of what I've said in the last 25 minutes, please do let me know in the chat. But meanwhile, what I'd like to do is demonstrate just something I've been working on. It's an autonomous agent. And when we talk about autonomous agents, you have the concept of retrieval, task, and autonomous in Copilot Studio. When you're building a custom agent, if it's based on retrieval, you're going to, and maybe I could highlight these things actually as we go along, a little lesson, a live lesson. If you're building retrieval, it's going to be based on knowledge. And so you would, of course, attach knowledge from different data sources, from SharePoint, from Dataverse, by uploading files, by pointing to your website. If you're looking to build a task-based agent, then you would you would add in some actions. And that's what gives your agent the capability to do stuff. And in the Power Platform, for anyone that is familiar with using Power Apps and Power Automate, if you took a particular connector, in this case we'll think about maybe Outlook, you might want to send an email. So you can add an action into your agent to send an email, and then that agent can call upon that action and it can send an email. And so only when you give it that capability, that task ability through actions, then your agent is able to achieve those things, and it'll be able to populate the different parameters either through fixed values or through dynamic values as a result of the conversation that you have. The thing that I wanted to demonstrate today, if I scroll just a bit further down, and I'll use green for this one, is triggers. And triggers is a new thing. It is in preview, but this allows you to achieve the autonomous capability. And right here at the moment, I have a trigger. Interestingly, it says when an item is created, but the flow itself I've modified so that it uses a manual trigger. And I can show you that by clicking on the ellipses and going into Edit in Power Automate. So we'll just wait for that screen to load up and we'll get into the new designer. So this is the flow when an item is created. And that particular trigger has two input parameters. What do you want to ask? And a conversation ID. And this is the interesting thing for me, is I wanted to explore the possibility of creating multi-agents, for a better word. I wanted to have a master agent at the top, and then sub-agents or mini-agents, whatever you want to call them, so that the master agent can be sent something from somewhere, a request. And I'm seeing lots of examples online from other platforms like NAN, for example, that are creating this agent network where you will send your request to a master agent and it will pick the agents to involve in a process. And these two input parameters, what you want to ask and the conversation ID, feed into this new action here. So this particular action, and in fact I'll go back to my red because I like red. This particular action is also in preview, but what it does is it allows you to select an agent through Copilot Studio that you've built, and I've built an agent called Autonomous Test, and I can then pass in several parameters, of which one of them is a conversation ID, which allows that autonomous agent to retain context. And for me, that is very exciting, because if you consider the scenario of having an autonomous agent dealing with customer emails, you have a mailbox, you have an email comes in, the trigger that you might use, so the trigger rather than the manual trigger, you might have when an email arrives in a mailbox, and it will get the content of that email and it will pass it into this prompt. It'll pass that content into the prompt. Now, if that agent is to deal with customer inquiries, and one of the prerequisites of that inquiry is like an order number, so someone is saying, I want a refund, and all they say is, I want a refund, then your agent would be able to determine that the reference number for their order is missing. And they could send back a reply. So the agent could reply back to the customer and say, I'm happy to help with your particular request, but I need an order reference number. So the agent can reply, the email goes to the customer replies with the order number, and then the email comes back in again, it's triggered, and you send the content of that email into the prompt. Now, at this point, it would start a brand new conversation with the same agent, and that agent wouldn't have the context. And that is where this value here comes into play. And this was the exciting discovery I had this morning because I've played with this in the past and it hasn't worked. But if you can capture the conversation ID, which is generated every time you run this action, not doing a proper arrow now, but every time you run this action, you will generate a conversation ID, and I'll show you in a second. And if you can capture that through your process and pass it on to your agent and then use it when you get an interaction from that same person or same process, then you can keep continuing that conversation and the context that that agent has. And that's what I hope to show you shortly in a second. So what this particular action does primarily is to send a prompt into an agent. And you can see here the message that I have at the moment is based on the input parameter. It will come from here into what do you want to ask, and it will include the text and email it to my email address. And if I was to try that manually, if you think about agents as we know them right now, if I was to ask them a question and say, what can you tell me about Aberdeen in Scotland, and email it to me at damien@damobird365.com. If I do that through the chat interface, this is not autonomous. This is what we currently consider agents to be. We interact via chat. But what we can see now on the left-hand side in this pane, in the activity map, is it will reason over the knowledge. And once it's reasoned over that knowledge and updated, you can see that it has captured the information and it is now sent an email to my email address based on what Aberdeen is. And I heard a ping, which is always a positive. And if I open up my other browser, I have my test email that's just been generated, information about Aberdeen, Scotland. So Aberdeen is in northeast Scotland, known as the Granite City, which is definitely correct. And we have North Sea oil industry. So my agent has been able to send an email through a chat interface, which is what we're commonly used to. But what I was talking about, obviously, was the autonomous capability. And autonomous capability means that you're no longer interacting with this agent through this traditional chat interface that we have here over on the right-hand side, whether that be the test interface that we've got, or maybe embedded in Teams or embedded on your public website. And so if I was to jump back across onto this flow, and if I was to test this particular flow, I can start a new conversation, and you'll see in a minute it will ask me for 2 input parameters. So those are the 2 input parameters that I have configured on my manual trigger. What do I want to ask? So I'm going to ask the same question again. What can you tell me about Aberdeen in Scotland? And I'm going to leave the conversation ID empty. Now, obviously, I'm demonstrating some of this manually, and in the ideal world, the conversation ID would be captured dynamically into a variable in your agent and shared back into the next agent. But by running this flow, we'll see the flow complete almost instantly. If I click on this send a prompt to the specified Copilot, this is the interesting bit for me anyway. You can see, if I highlight here, the message, what can you tell me about Aberdeen, Scotland, and email it to my email address. That's been sent to my agent, and then the eagle-eyed of you might notice that the response, the output, again, understanding Power Automate Cloud Flow's inputs and outputs, the output is a 202, which basically means the service has received that request and it has yet to complete it, albeit I just heard a ping. But if I jump back across onto my Copilot Studio, and if I pop into this activity tab here, you'll see that at 18:33, which was just seconds ago, if I click on this particular conversation, this automated conversation. And this activity tab is only available if you've got the generative orchestration enabled. But what this lets me do is view either the conversations that folk have had with it as an end user or through the autonomous capability. I'll click on that. We can see that the first action here was to search over knowledge sources. I haven't actually added any knowledge sources, which is presumably why it says it's not found anything, but it is set up to use the general internet, which is why it's able to find out information about Aberdeen. But if I have a look at the send a flow or send an email to an agent, yet again, it sent an email with information about Aberdeen, and that email has been sent okay. The other interesting thing is if I come across here onto the activity map drop down, we've got a transcript, and we can see here, what can you tell me about Aberdeen and Scotland? And the agent has said it sent information to my email address. This is where things will get a bit more interesting, if it's not already interesting for you. If I now pop back open my email, I had that ping and I got another version of the same sort of email, but a nicely formatted email about information in Aberdeen, and again it's Granite City, etc. Remember, this is generative, so the output will vary every time. But if I now jump back across onto my flow, the compose, which I didn't show you, is capturing the conversation ID, and this for me is the exciting bit. If I copy that conversation ID and I go into edit, and we'll just test it again, I'll put the flow into manual mode again, and I'll ask another question. So this time, not giving away the fact that I've previously asked about Aberdeen, but if I paste the conversation ID into this input parameter here, and on the ask, if I maybe say, and how far is it from London, I'm hoping that when I run this flow, what will happen is, again, it will complete, because all it's doing is passing on that message and how far is it from London, and email it to Dingo Bird. So you'll see that this particular action call has no context, but I have passed in that conversation ID. And the exciting bit, hopefully, I wonder even if it will have refreshed. If I come into here and I refresh, we can now see the update to that conversation. How far is it from London? And it sent information about the distance from London to Aberdeen and sent it to my email. And we're now seeing how the autonomous capability comes together by using that conversation ID as one of the parameters for that action. And again, if I just pop open my email, we would have maybe heard that ping, but the distance from London to Aberdeen is 400 miles. There we go. Albeit I would not suggest you travel by train. I've had to do that once when all the flights from London were cancelled, and it took me almost the same length of time it does to get to the far west side of America. Definitely fly it. So we're able to now have a conversation with our agent, albeit I've manufactured the scenario with the trigger because it's manual. But these are the sort of things that I can showcase in the community. And if there's something that you're unsure about, again, there was even a colleague this week who was trying to build an autonomous agent and having difficulty with the connection references, because folk don't realize that when you run these things autonomously, whilst it is called out in the documentation, the actions don't have the context of the user that is calling the agent. Therefore, you have to use connection references based on the developer or owner of the agent, or potentially service accounts. There are things like that based on experience that I have that I can help folk with. But the exciting thing for me, and whilst I'm not going to show it tonight, is in the add an action, and this is where I imagine things will eventually go. I'm guessing, because I don't definitely know the answer, but if you've started to explore autonomous agents and you've wondered how can you create this multi-agent structure that I'm talking about with a master agent and the sub-agents, we have this action here, execute Copilot, which is the one that I've been calling in my Power Automate flow. If I select that, we'll be able to see when it finally catches up that it'll have very similar input parameters to the one that I used in Power Automate. And it looks like it's going through the process of creating a connection, which it's just done with a green tick. But we can see that there's the authentication, but if we look at the inputs and outputs, at the moment it has just got the one. There we go. We've got the conversation ID and the message, which is the same settings that you'll see in Power Automate, because ultimately it is an action that is part of a connector. And you could, in theory, have multiple actions based on this execute Copilot as part of your master agent, and it could then subsequently call all your sub-agents to orchestrate multiple challenges or multiple requirements as a result of the initial request to that master agent. And that, like I say, something that I haven't yet got in the course materials, but is something that I'm actively exploring, trying to understand how we can use this amazing low-code technology to build out this automation, agents, and AI. So that really is all I wanted to showcase tonight. I appreciate everyone that's joined, and I can go back to full screen. There we go. So I appreciate everyone that's come along tonight, asked questions in the chat, introduced themselves from various places across the world. That's really what makes me tick, meeting people. And it was great to kick things off yesterday evening as part of this community. I see there is a question there from Michael. What license do we need to complete the course? Ultimately, yes, I will not be providing folk with licenses for Copilot Studio. The licensing for Copilot Studio is ultimately changing again, in that previously you would have to have bought a $200 license for access to messages for custom agents, but this has very much changed. Just prior to Christmas, there's now a pay-as-you-go option, so you can pay a cent a message using an Azure subscription. But saying that, before you even have to worry about setting all these things up as an organization, you can take out trials, and depending on whether or not you've got access to a developer environment at work, you would be able to potentially take out a trial there. Of course, if your organization hasn't blocked trials. If you've not got that, then potentially you'd have to look at trying to get access to a developer tenant. And that's maybe something that historically I've had, because I've been working on the platform now for about 5 years or so. I'm not sure what the state of play is these days with requesting these things, but it's certainly something I can help people with if you're in the situation of not having your own developer tenant. But it's not something I'd want to host for you, because ultimately I don't want to be responsible for your data. I want you to be responsible for your own data, ensure that whatever you share, whether that's based on your organization or based on your own personal information, that you are ultimately responsible for it. So I'll provide you with the materials, I'll enable you to complete the coursework, and I'll provide you with those recordings. But in terms of having a test platform for building these things out, testing these things, ultimately that'll be down to you getting access through either your organization or by setting up a developer tenant. And like I say, something that potentially I can help with if we find there's a lot of people in that situation. I see there's another question. Mahesh, nice to meet you virtually. Also nice to meet you too. Do you need any experience to build custom connectors? There is a video on my YouTube, and actually now that I'm not sharing, I can hunt it down whilst I'm talking. I did a video recently on connectors, showing you how to how to build a custom connector, but then also how to use that custom connector for different platforms, different services within the Power Platform. So it's to do with a Films API. I've just put the link in the chat just now. You'll learn how to build a custom connector for a public API which returns movie and movie information. And then you'll learn how to integrate that into, I think from memory, Power Automate Cloudflow, a Power App Canvas app, so that you can display that information on a gallery, but also into Copilot Studio. So it really shows you the power and the repeatability of building a custom connector. You'll have an API that you can use that's publicly available. You can learn how to build that connector, and then you can see how easy it is to then integrate it across the different tools in the Power Platform. And again, that's something that I'm very passionate about. I think once you learn the tools of this platform, it's very easy to repeat them across different scenarios. And I hear it being described as Lego in the wider community. Ultimately, it's building blocks. So once you understand how to bring those building blocks together, you can kind of pick and choose. Some of those building blocks are in preview, and there's things like low-code connect or low-code plugins, that are in preview, and there are folk in the community that are showcasing that sort of stuff, and it's fantastic. Again, the community is amazing for seeing the available options. But when it comes to production, if you're looking to go production, then it's seriously considering the fact that you want to go live with stuff that is GA, generally available, and that sort of stuff. If you're not familiar with, I can dispel as part of the community and sharing resources and helping you with that, etc. So I hope that helps, Mahesh, and you maybe have a look at that video if you've not seen it already, and maybe share your results and let me know if you've built your own custom connector or if you have just followed the video. I'm just looking across to the chat once more. I'm not seeing any more questions. So I'm probably going to call it quits. Cheers, Mahesh. I'll call it quits, but ultimately I'm hoping that from what I've described tonight, what I've showcased tonight, it would be fantastic to have folk join me on this community, on this new idea that I have. The initial sort of sign-ups have been fantastic. It's great to have 10 on the kickoff call last night. Like I say, the memberships are up at about 20. If you're not sure, you have got that 7-day trial, so there's no pressure to commit. You can have a look around. You can have a look at some of those materials, maybe complete a couple of those labs that are available, or have a look at them on the preview. And then hopefully it'd be fantastic to see new faces on the live calls and see some more comments in the community posts. But ultimately, thank you very much for coming along tonight. It's great to have connected with some of you on the chat. And if you haven't already, make sure you like and subscribe my channel, and we'll see where 2025 takes us. Thank you very much for watching and coming along, and I'll see you soon. Cheers.